Hello YouTube, this is Obamamaniac, and I'd like to share with you an ethical and philosophical concept which I believe in very strongly, called the consistent life ethic, and how I came to support it. When I first became interested in politics at around the age of 15 or 16, though my overall political philosophy was strongly liberal, I was also strongly pro-life and viewed the issue of abortion and many other issues in terms of black and white. In my mind, anybody who was pro-choice was a cruel and heartless baby killer. But then, to my shock and horror, I found out that someone I cared about was pro-choice, and though I never said anything to her about it at the time, wondered why, despite her personal objections to abortion, she still held a pro-choice position. I eventually started to listen to the arguments of people who are pro-choice. Though the legal, constitutional, feminist, and church and state arguments did not convince me, the argument that they'll do it anyway, on the other hand, did convince me, become at least nominally pro-choice. In other words, while I supported the legalization of abortion, I doubt even back then if I ran for office I would have been endorsed by NARAL or Planned Parenthood, because I supported some legal restrictions on abortion, such as parental consent laws, a ban on partial birth abortion, waiting periods, pre-abortion counseling, and requiring a woman to view an ultrasound of her unborn child before getting an abortion. The entire time I held this position, I always questioned whether I was really doing the right thing by holding this position, and often doubted myself. These doubts and questions became even more intense after I found out about the consistent life ethic through a Christian organization I was a member of and still am, called Sojourners. Like many who identify themselves as pro-life, they decried how abortion threatened the sanctity of life. But unlike many people on the religious and political right, who also identify themselves as pro-life, they also decried what they rightfully view as other threats to the sanctity of life. They talked about how 2 billion people worldwide live on less than $2 a day, how thousands, maybe even millions of women in the third world have been kidnapped and sold into sexual slavery. The moral shame of America being the richest country on the face of the earth, yet having the highest poverty rate of all the industrialized nations, and the only industrialized nation where 45 million of its citizens do not have health insurance. How America is the only industrialized nation which still uses the death penalty. How millions of people in the third world, especially Africa, are dying of AIDS and preventable diseases like malaria because they do not have things as simple as medications, vaccines, or clean drinking water. How 3,000 of our bravest men and women have died in a needless and ill-advised war in Iraq, along with countless Iraqi civilians. How the effects of global warming threaten to increase natural disasters such as hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, famines, and disease. How hundreds of thousands of innocent people in the Darfur region of Sudan are being slaughtered while the nations of the earth do nothing. After much contemplation and soul-searching, I eventually came to the conclusion that my pro-choice position, though as moderate and even conservative as it may have been, was inconsistent, and I could thus no longer support it in good conscience. And I embraced the consistent life ethic. All of us, especially those who have the most, have a moral responsibility toward one another. We have a responsibility to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, heal the sick, comfort the weary, and protect the unborn. Despite what many of you have heard, these things are not mutually exclusive, but are part of a seamless garment where all life is respected for its inherent dignity.